The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. We are going to jump right in and get started. This is Chris Brownell speaking. I'm joined today by Chad Eckhout. And if you know Chad and you know me, you know we both can get going on the topic of behavioral health lighting and start talking for a while. So we're really going to try and keep it to a crisp 30 minutes, which means we've got no minute to waste. And we want to open it up for questions also at the end. So if you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to enter those into the GoToWebinar control panel. And otherwise, we're just going to go ahead and get rolling here. So if you've been to a Curlin webinar in the past, you likely know that lighting is very important in behavioral health settings. And I just wanted to kick off this session with a reminder that there's so much that lighting can do, and so many ways that we can impact these spaces. But the big three that we really want to focus on are here on the slide, and they are number one, mood and sleep regulation. So really the impact of lighting on our circadian rhythm. Number two, safety and risk mitigation, really ensuring that you've got fixtures and designs in these spaces that are suitable for behavioral health, tamper resistant, ligature resistant, impact resistant, and provide the proper light levels for staff and for patients to reduce harm. And the third is, it's been a real theme around here, around Curlin, the past couple of years, but patient empowerment through control. So allowing patients to adjust brightness, color of their environment promotes autonomy, helps with emotional regulation, and tunable lighting as well, just tunable white can help to simulate natural daylight, support therapeutic environments in other ways. So we're going to talk about all of these today. But before we do, a quick primer on what we mean when we say behavioral health facilities. These are essentially spaces where behavioral health or psychiatric or mental health services are being provided to patients. Whether that's an inpatient psychiatric hospital where long-term, very high-risk individuals can live for many years, and that's many years at sort of the highest risk level, the most secure type of accommodations, and really the highest risk, highest security in an inpatient psychiatric hospital. From there down to shorter term units such as a crisis stabilization unit, which can be just as high risk as an inpatient psychiatric hospital in terms of the types of issues and the types of patients that will be seen. But shorter durations will be found here than at an inpatient hospital. You really are looking to do a quick assessment and then discharge either to an inpatient facility or down to a residential treatment center. And a residential treatment center is live-in, as the name implies, can be long-term, but often it's not as uniformly high risk as the first two. They tend to have a mix of patients, high risk, medium risk, low risk, which can make designing inpatient facilities a challenge. We frequently see one wing maybe designated for the highest risk patients who may need to be restrained or put into seclusion more often. But one trend in these spaces is that the items that are hard to remove, like the components of the built environment, such as lighting, built-in lighting, that tends to be designed to the highest risk level because you're going to have different patient populations at different times as things ebb and flow in society, and flexibility is so important in these residential treatment facilities that while the furniture and the things that can be removed may be lower risk for the lower risk patients, the things that are part of the built environment, they try to keep them consistently high risk. I'm remembering a project in Texas that we did where there were 200 rooms, 100 low risk and 100 high risk, but they built all the low risk rooms as far as the lighting and the switching and everything installed in the walls and ceilings to that same high risk standard, just in case. And the last place that we talk about for behavioral health care is community-based or outpatient care. This is a place where patients come for treatment, therapy, medication, or counseling when they're out of a residential facility, but still require oversight and touch points. In all of these spaces where we do behavioral health lighting design and design in general, we're trying to balance four competing priorities. That's what makes these spaces such a challenge, and you can't optimize just for one of these and forget about the others. So it's also what makes product design for behavioral health so fun, frankly, because it's always a push and pull between these forces. Really quickly, the first is patient experience. We want comfort and dignity for our patients, a sense of normal, a sense of home. And a lot of that comes from autonomy and control, like I said. So patient experience is number one. Safety is number two. That's the reason you probably can't use your favorite architectural fixture in these spaces. They're just not safe for the people who will be in these locations. We need ligature resistance, tamper resistance. The staff needs line of sight to the patients at all times. And there is some lighting where we do need to control patient access and make sure that patients can't do certain things with the lighting at certain times of day, so that they don't create a disruption for themselves, for a roommate, or for a whole ward. So we're balancing patient satisfaction, patient safety. Add to that mix clinical effectiveness, lighting that supports sleep at night, supports alertness during the day, supports emotional regulation, and can really be a part of the care that's provided in a color therapy room or a sensory room or other therapeutic activities. And the fourth piece of the seesaw here, which is operational concerns, operational considerations. Are the fixtures maintainable, durable, intuitive for the staff and the patients? Are their critical components accessible for regular service? And if we can balance all four of these things, we're doing a pretty good job at behavioral health design. And probably the area where lighting has come the farthest over the past decade is the introduction of patient-centric solutions that do meet those other three criteria of safety, clinical effectiveness, and operability. So some of those benefits of recent advancements in behavioral health lighting are here on the slide. Number one, improvement to patient rest and recovery. Using the right lighting to support circadian rhythm really is what that means. Number two is increasing the feeling of patient agency or autonomy over the space, as I've probably stressed too much so far in this presentation, where they can truly self-manage their own light exposure, which means they're self-managing their environment for a better and happier day, which is really, really special and valuable if you think about it. And number three is less about patient empowerment and more about staff empowerment, which is the lights need to work if they're going to have any of these other benefits. So design for simple maintenance is an area that we at Curlin have not really delved into in previous webinars, but Chad is going to spend a good amount of time on that today because it relates to a couple of new initiatives here at Curlin that will help make sure we're not just empowering the patients with our lighting, but also keeping that balance, giving staff and facilities teams what they need as well. So let's dig into that first section, promoting rest and recovery. This is an example of a fixture. It's our Hitsville nightlight, and it can be ordered in static white with a 590 nanometer amber source. Now, why 590 nanometer amber? If we're night lighting, it's the night, and the patient should be asleep. And it's well known that wavelengths of light below 550 nanometers are what we call melatonin suppressing wavelengths. That's why those blue light glasses filter out blue, because it'll keep you up at night. So on the left, you see a spectral chart of our 590 nanometer amber light source. Nothing there below 550 nanometers. So this light will help a patient see if they're awake at night, but it won't jolt them into a state of hyper alertness or awakeness if they're just up for a short moment between REM cycles. You can also get a nightlight, as you see on the far right, in a static white 3500 Kelvin or various other color temperatures of white. If you do want melatonin suppression, and where would you want melatonin suppression in a nightlight? If you're in a staff area or even a staff portion of the room for night shift workers, you do kind of want a little bit of boost. You don't want a high level of sleepiness among the night shift. So that's a fixture where you can have either melatonin support or melatonin suppression. We now also have the technology from Curlin and from others where you can have not just either, one or the other, but both. So this is a downlight from our Ambient Plus series. It can shine at 3500 Kelvin all day long, and then voila, it switches to amber when the clock hits whatever time at night, and you've got that narrowband 590 nanometer amber source throughout the night, which gives you all the benefits shown in the chart on the prior page. That's great, you may say. Amber looks nice. It feels like a warm fire, but where is the evidence? Is this really backed by science? And thankfully, there are two recently published studies that I wanted to share today because we've been preaching the benefit of blue suppressed light at night for many years. And now we have some completed research that was begun several years ago, which supports these recommendations. So the first is the Kalistad study from 2024 that is specific to a psychiatric unit They randomly assigned 476 adult patients to either normal conditions or to blue depleted evening light environment. Everything else about their care was the same, so it's a great randomized control study. Patients in the amber group showed higher rates of improvement, meaning more of them got better, which is precisely the point of care in a psychiatric unit. Also, the severity of their illness was rated by their doctors as lower on average at the time of discharge. And lastly, the ratings of aggressive behavior was significantly lower. And interestingly, I don't want to just cherry pick the good data out of this study. There was no change between the groups in terms of the duration of admission, actual violence, or the risk of suicide as determined by the staff in their daily staff meetings. So the study did show a significant impact, not across every metric. They were really hoping to see a reduction in duration of admission, which they did not see, but they did see these other benefits with really no negative side effects. Nothing got worse with the blue suppressed light at night. Second study is from a hospital, but not a psychiatric hospital. It was published last year in the Journal of Sleep Research. And they did a similar randomized control study where half the patients received customized lighting that included blue light during the day, but blue suppressed light at night, amber light at night. And the patients in the customized group showed overall greater sleep probability and then 66 more minutes of sleep per night on average, which is a wild outcome to me. I'd go for 66 more minutes of sleep myself, and higher levels of alertness in the morning and in the evening, potentially due to that extra hour of sleep everybody was getting. So their KSS scores, which I have to mention because it's my favorite metric in all of science, is the Karolinska Sleepiness Scale, which we also use at Kurlan meetings to rate our colleagues. But the patients with the melatonin supporting amber light at night, they were sleeping more in the night, they were less sleepy during the day, more alert during the day. And I just want to zoom in a little bit on this chart here because at every point throughout the night, and again, these like sine wave looking things are averages. You can see all of the data points here. So there were some people in the control group that just were super sleepy all the time. But on average, the red line never crosses the blue line, which means at any moment during the night, the control group was more likely to be awake than the test group. So this is a pretty convincing chart. I mean, the first study had some pros and some cons, some things that we saw and things that we didn't see. This one is pretty pretty significant, where the melatonin supporting light, the blue suppressed light at night, was really ensuring that patients were sleeping more likely to be asleep, and that factored through into how their care teams rated their alertness on that KSS sleepiness scale as well. So the right light sources and the right fixtures can promote health through better sleep at night, which is awesome. That was topic number one. The next topic we wanted to talk about was empowering patients to control their environment. We've discussed this topic before on Kurlan webinars. I don't want to beat anybody over the head with it, but wanted to remind you all of the Empower series, the behavioral health controls from Kurlan, which enables us to give the patient control of any 0 to 10 volt dimmable fixture and any DMX fixture in their space. If you would like to see these controls yourselves and play with them and try to break them if you want, that can be fun in behavioral health as well. We now have a sleek sample case that I want to show you. So I recorded a video the other day, which I will now play for you if I can get it all to work.
So this is a brand new sample kit that we are coming out with very shortly. It's a very simple way to demonstrate the control aspects of the Empower series. As we've been talking about, putting the patient in control of the ambient light as well as any dynamic color changing light that may be in their room or in a sensory room or any other space, any other common space or shared space also within a behavioral health facility. So here on the left-hand side, both the light source as well as the wall plate is showing the 0 to 10 volt capability. So very, very simply, you choose which button you want. And in this case, I'm going to power the internal source, tap it to turn it on. And you can see here, if I hold it, it dims down. If I keep holding it, it dims back up. I'm going to dim it down to a nice comfortable level so I'm not blinding myself. And then once I release, that feels good. I can tap that on and off, and this works with Kurlan fixtures, non-Kurlan fixtures, anything that uses a 0 to 10 volt dimming driver. And the great thing about this is if you're a resident in a long-term care facility and this is the light level you want, this will be the light level that those lights turn on at every single time. It's essentially like having a preset that never changes unless you age and you need more light. You stay in for a couple of years, you move into a new preset level, or a new patient comes in. This is the light level they like for their task lighting or for their ambient lighting, and they can save it at that zone. So very robust. You can test the ligature resistance as well and the vandal resistance here with this simple kit. Moving over to the right-hand side, this is our dynamic Empower DMX. So this is what we use to control all the RGBW color changing light, whether it's point source or linear or even indirect color changing light that we can offer. Simply tap that faceplate to turn it on, and you can see there's 8 pre-programmed scenes that are available on the spec sheet. So this is kind of like an orangey yellow, amber color. We also have some greens, blues, pinks, and then some dynamic scenes as well that change as you go. So that is the Empower DMX, a very simple way to put the patient in control of the lighting in their space. And this case will be available to show. The great thing about this is it very simply shows what these controls can do using these 2 integral sources. There are also auxiliary ports on the sides of this case, so that if you want to plug in a specific fixture, Curlin or non-Curlin, and show how these Empower controls will power that fixture, you can do that as well. So reach out to your regional if you're interested in seeing one of these, and hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about the Empower series.
All right. One thing that comes up often in these spaces too is intuitive controls, which to make some controls intuitive, you need some labeling. And we've added the option LBL to our Empower 0 to 10 volt switch and have a configurator that is coming very soon to our website that will enable you to design a wall plate right on our website, generate a PDF submittal so that we can add very durable, scratch-resistant labels to the faceplate, including whatever custom text you would like to add. We've done this as a custom on a project already, looking forward to making it super easy for our customers and ultimately super easy for patients to know which button controls the main lights versus the restroom lights or the reading lights, whatever the configuration is in the room. And speaking of the lighting configuration in the room, I wanted to remind you all that the controls are a very important underpinning. They're underpinning all the lighting, and there are 6 primary layers of light or functions of light that we want to remember for these behavioral spaces. They're ambient lighting, where you may seek to use tunable white that has an adjustable color temp and adjustable intensity so that we can really vary that feeling of the room over the course of the day. Task lighting, where you want to ensure patient control. Night lighting in 590 nanometer, of course, amber. Observation lighting, which can be switched outside the room by the staff so they can observe the patient at night without disrupting their sleep. Dynamic color changing light, which is sometimes controlled by the patient, as you saw with that Empower demo. Sometimes it's controlled by the staff, but it can be very important for a number of reasons in these behavioral spaces. And then specialty lighting like restroom lighting, shower lighting, things that need to be designed to meet additional performance requirements. So all of these must be controlled one way or another, and we can now do that in a super patient-centric way thanks to the Empower series. So with these controls and these layers of light, what can we do? We can go through a day in the life where the morning starts with bright, cooler light to regulate daily rhythm. And then during moments of anxiety or emotional distress for the patient, we can have reduced light output, warmer light, even calming color scenes if we're in a space with RGBW lighting. Then during therapy or group activities, we prefer even, comfortable illumination that doesn't distract anyone from the task at hand, supporting focus and engagement of the patients. In the evening, we'll wind down. We want lighting that can be dimmed, warmer color temps. That'll help as we ramp down to sleep. Of course, overnight, you want very low light levels, the ability for staff to increase those light levels for better observation, still without disrupting the patient's sleep if at all possible. This day can totally be achieved as it's shown if the right lighting is specified and installed, but it can also be impossible to achieve if the wrong lighting is specified and installed. So we want to make sure that we're choosing the right light for the patients and the right light for the staff. But the last topic I wanted to explore, and I'm going to actually hand it over to Chad to explore it, is how do we design behavioral health spaces, not just for the staff and the patients, but also for optimal maintainability and for that maintenance staff. So now I will hand it over to Chad.
All right, thanks, Chris. Here's a look at a typical behavioral patient room, and Before we get into maintaining that lighting, I want to just do a quick rehash on the lighting you would typically find inside one of these spaces. There usually isn't many fixture types, generally a few downlights for ambient lighting. And the downlights are a great selection because they're less institutional and a more hospitality-driven design. Thus, they instill a more home-like feel. There should also be a desk light along with a wayfinding night light. And our Hitsville series allows you to accomplish both with matching appearance units. Another light they might have in the patient room is the observation light, which would be located over the patient bed. That's the light that's switched in the corridor, and it helps the staff identify the location of the patient prior to entry into the room at night. And then in the hygiene zone or restroom, you probably are going to need a dead front ligature resistant shower downlight, which is a must inside any shower stall in a behavioral health application. And other than that, maybe a couple more downlights in the restroom as well as a over the mirror light. And that's really about it for lighting in the patient room. Now, for the facility manager, you know, the guy or the girl who are handed that great responsibility of maintaining this operation and keeping everything running. The focus changes significantly from patient care and healing to one of integrity, longevity, and serviceability. Luminaires that are installed in a hard ceiling are typically not as easily serviced, forcing the replacement of parts through the aperture of the light fixture. And working in a dark ceiling space can surely be cumbersome and a bit time consuming, which begs the question, what to do with the patient when work is being done in their room? The facility or department, it might be full. There may be no other patient rooms available to them. So ladders, tools, equipment can be extremely dangerous in this environment if missed, forgotten, or left behind. And let's face it, all luminaires are not created equally. One common theme is they all require tamper-proof hardware, right? But what type of hardware? Are the fasteners identical from brand to brand or even from fixture to fixture? Absolutely not. And even if we specify and try to keep all the head types of the fasteners the same, the sizes will vary greatly between fixture types, if that's even possible. So all of this slows down the repair process greatly, but there's something that affects the servicing of light fixtures even more. Take a look at this wayfinding light. In many instances, quite possibly due to field conditions, maybe on renovation work or even new construction, the installer or the owner felt the need to have pick-resistant caulk applied to the light fixture. In fact, in OMH's guidance documents, they reference the use of caulk as the very first bullet under installation guidelines, which is shown here near the top of the slide. They also might call out the requirement for a particular luminaire, if need be, also shown directly beneath where it has that comment, caution note, sealant around perimeter. They'll say that could be required for a particular fixture. Every LED fixture will have a driver failure at some point. Can you imagine what the rooms will look like if every time a fixture required servicing, pick-resistant caulk had to be removed and then reapplied? Here at Curlin, we've listened to our clients' needs and we're proud to introduce our line of remote mini cabinets. These are UL listed steel enclosures designed to mount right to the T-bar of the ceiling up in the plenum. At 4.5 inches wide by 20 inches long and only 2.5 inches tall, they are small in size and easy to locate up in that plenum. They can be ordered for specific luminaire types like static white, tunable white, or DMX RGBW. So why is Curlin offering remote mini cabinets? Well, first, there's no need to get into that fixture ever other than an LED replacement. Drivers are serviced remotely and thus never disturbing caulked fixture trims to replace one. That means the rooms and the wall paint will look great for a much longer period of time. And every remote driver fixture now becomes class 2 low voltage. That makes the building lighting even safer than before. Safer for patients, safer for the maintenance crew. No more working blindly into a dark hole in the ceiling or wall. And maintenance time is cut in half. Safe, easy, and fast. Now we're going to take a look at some examples of patient room lighting with remote mini cabinets. On the left, you'll see the REM SWCAB, which stands for, you might have guessed it, Remote Static White Cabinet. In this example, we power up three 1500 lumen ligature resistant downlights for that ambient room lighting in the room. And also inside is the observation lights driver. And again, that observation light is located over the patient bed. It's amber in hue, and it will be switched out in the corridor. And it's great for the staff to turn that on prior to entry at night so they can locate the patient. On the right is the wayfinding Hitsville remote cabinet. In this REM MTCAB, we're powering a reading/task light, as well as a through-the-wall Hitsville behavioral night light. The through-the-wall illuminates both the patient room as well as the restroom. Now, taking a look at where to put the remote drivers, our first instinct was to remote the drivers in the corridor outside the patient room. And that makes a lot of sense. The pros of doing so are, it's usually grid ceiling in those hallways. So they're going to be easily accessible and identifiable because, heck, they're right outside the room it controls. Maintenance can be done outside the room. You don't have to worry about disturbing the patient. The con in putting them there is the facility personnel must remain with their ladder and tools until the job is completed. They just simply cannot leave until that work is done, or they become a safety hazard. Our next choice would be to put them inside the patient room, up in the patient room ceiling, mounted to the back of an access door. And the story behind this came as I was working out in the field with a design team and a client on a new behavioral wing at a hospital. And they happened to have their facility director present for this initial meeting. And his suggestion, or should I say question, was, can we put the remote cabinets in the patient room above the hard ceiling? And before I gave him an answer, I asked, why would you go and do that? Believing that he's defeating the major purpose of remoting the drivers. And his answer was immediately understood. He told me that while doing repair and maintenance work, his personnel often get called temporarily away to a more pressing need, or it's time for their lunch. So being inside the patient room, they can leave the ceiling open along with the ladder and tools in the room and simply lock the entry door and thus keep everything safe inside. So the pros of this design would be the cabinet or cabinets are mounted to the backside of an access door. So when it's lowered from the ceiling, not only are they easily serviced, but everything's easily visible down in the room. The installer can quickly make repairs, or if called away, like I said, they can shut that door and lock it up and keep it safe until they return. The cons would be that, what does a patient do when they're working in their room? Hopefully the facility or the department has another room available for that patient, or that room happens to be unoccupied at that time. And then thirdly, they can be located in an electrical or maintenance closet down the hallway. And there's usually those all throughout the facility. Located there, they're, again, easy to maintain, but now they're farther away from the room and the fixtures. So Curlin remote mini cabinets, they can be mounted typically up to 250 feet away. That's 250 feet away, depending on what fixtures we are powering. So with that, let's go back to Chris for a wrap up of today's session, and also what's coming from Curlin in the in the near future. Chris?
All righty. Well, thanks, Chad. You took us to the top of the hour, so I hope everybody has an extra couple minutes. But one thing I did want to say as we're talking about maintenance and maintainability, one thing that's coming very soon to Curlin spec sheets is maintenance levels. This has been a hot topic in the lighting industry of making sure that manufacturers like Curlin can tell everyone out in the design community and our contractors and everyone else, what can you do with this fixture? Which elements can be removed through the aperture and replaced or upgraded for easy maintenance, and ensuring that we're not selling product that needs to either just get thrown away if something goes wrong, or even worse yet, something that can't really be removed from the ceiling without totally breaking the ceiling apart. And that's particularly a challenge in these behavioral spaces because they do have so many hard lid ceilings, and there are products out there that are not very easily removed or serviced. And you have to look very closely at the installation sheet to make that determination. So what we are adding to our spec sheets is maintenance levels M1, M2, and M3. M1 means you can remove a fixture and its light head. You can remove the light head, the LED module, and the driver for maintenance with simply your hands and a Phillips head screwdriver, maybe a basic wrench. Very standard tools. M2 means you might need a specialty tool. All of our behavioral health fixtures are going to be M2 because you need a center pin hex wrench bit, which we do supply with the products. But you do need that specialty tool to open the fixture up. But once it's open, you can remove everything through the aperture and service it. And then M3 is a level that we're adding for if you have applied, for example, that pick-proof caulk, you will need a blade to cut around the perimeter to remove that very robust single piece trim from the ceiling to get into the fixture to service the light head and the driver. So just wanting to be very transparent and open as to the benefits. And we design all of these fixtures for the utmost maintainability and serviceability. And we want to put that out there and make it very apparent when you're specifying Curlin fixtures, installing them, or just trying to learn more about them, that these fixtures are easy to maintain and exactly the requirements of what would need to go into maintaining them so that we can have long-standing, successful installations of these products in behavioral health and everywhere that the Curlin products are installed. If you'd like to learn more about this, come to our webinar on March 3rd, which is called Saving Lives, Saving Money, and Future-Proofing Facilities. Logan and I are going to talk through a whole bunch of topics related to healthcare facilities and really just the improvement of lighting in those spaces. But we're gonna talk at length about the maintenance levels as well. So with Curlin behavioral health, hopefully you've learned a thing or two about the balancing act of the elements that go into designing these spaces, and really the goal, which is to produce a single empowered facility for patients, for staff, and for facilities and admin, so that everything can be used well on a day-to-day basis, maintained well on a day-to-day basis, and used to promote and encourage health and wellness among the staff, among the patients, and really, when we can participate in the therapy that's happening as well with some color therapy items, that's even better. And if you're interested in color therapy, we've got another webinar on Thursday for you. So with that, I will open it up for questions. I saw a few come through as we were talking. Again, my apologies for going over the allotted time, but there's a lot to talk about here. It's such an important and critical space. So if you have questions, you can enter them in the GoToWebinar control panel. I've got a number of them. And the first is, can the nightlight with a photocell be controlled also via an override switch? The answer there is yes. You can essentially override to off. If you're looking for overriding that photocell nightlight to on, that's not something that we support right out of the box, but it's certainly something that we could take a look at. But as of now, that photocell is sort of part of that overall circuit, which requires there to be low light levels for that light to come on. So that's a good one to take back to our engineering team and get back to you on. So thank you for that question. The next is, how much control is too much control for patients? That's an interesting question. It's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? People may have differing opinions, and part of our goal as a manufacturer is to produce the technology and the components that can be used to achieve the design objective of the team, because at different risk levels and things, you're going to have different requirements as well. There are certain facilities we've worked with where we've shown them the Empower DMX for controlling color changing, and they've said absolutely not. The patients in this facility, we don't want to give them the autonomy over color changing light. We want only staff control, and we want it to be completely secure. So in that case, we have a keyed access color changing switch that we can provide and ensure that only the staff can vary the lighting. That can be very important in color therapy rooms too, where they're actually trying to achieve a clinical objective with the color that's chosen. You don't want necessarily a patient to be modifying the lighting in a color therapy room. So understandable that we want staff control in those areas. But I would say it varies based on a number of factors. So the ability to give patients some control over certain elements we know has clinical benefits. But as for the exact specifics, we're happy to consult on a job by job basis, but also look to give primary authority there to the care providers to create the environment that they're looking to create. The next question is, when is the remote mini cabinet going to be available? That is another good question. Pay attention to your email. Within the next couple of weeks, this will be fully launched, and it will be included on every spec sheet where it can be used with that product. So it will result in slightly longer kernel and spec sheets, but we've focus grouped this a little bit, and that was the preference, that if a remote mini cabinet can be used to power a product, to just put it right there on the spec sheet. So just scroll to the third or fourth page of the spec sheet, and it'll be in the option grid as well, with that remote driver option for the fixture itself. So that'll reference back to the specifics of the REM cabinet for that fixture. So give us till mid-March, and that should be fully rolled out. Next question, what are the other webinars in this series? So today we have another one of these coming up later in the afternoon. If you've got colleagues who might be interested in this topic, please share the registration link you used to register, and anyone else can still register for that session a little bit later today. But we also have the Science of Color Therapy, which I mentioned. That is on Thursday. And then next week, we have that Saving Lives, Saving Money, and Future-Proofing Facilities, where we're going to talk a little bit more about the maintenance levels. And on Thursday, we have MRI technology evolving with the times, basically. So sort of mapping the evolution of MRI imaging technology, plus the lighting that can be used in MRI suites, which is a topic near and dear to us at Curlin. And I'm now just trying to verify the time of that second webinar. It is 3:30 p.m. Eastern time is going to be that second webinar today. So each of these webinars in the series have an 11:30 Eastern and a 3:30 Eastern slot. Okay, the next question was a follow-up question to the nightlight question. If a nightlight is turned off, will it get back on via a photocell the next day? So that is, it's definitely an achievable request. We don't necessarily have anything right out of the box that can do that, but it's a good use case to dig into, and might require an extra component in the chain there, just to make sure that we're resetting some sort of relay or timer involved in the system, but technologically it should absolutely be possible. Okay, next question: is one maintenance level better than another? So the maintenance levels, all of them, again, it's kind of an example of the balancing act. All of these mean that the fixture can be fully maintained through the aperture, so you can replace the driver if there's any challenges. You can replace the light head as time goes on. This is just essentially telling you the tools that are needed, not necessarily one's better than the other. If you're in behavioral health and you really want an M1 fixture, I'm going to tell you, you're out of luck, because to be in a behavioral health setting, we don't want you to use standard Phillips head style fasteners. We are going to require those center pin hex bit fasteners. So the best you can do if you're using a specialty fastener that needs a specialty tool to open it, whether that's in a behavioral health facility or in a bus terminal, you're going to be M2. But when the right person with the right tool comes to that fixture and opens it up, they'll be able to maintain it just as easily as if it were an M1. So it's really not that one is better than the other. It's that we just want to be clear on what's required to open up the fixture. But what is great and what is really sort of the best about the Curlin modularity and the product design, to toot our own horn for a second, is that you can remove everything through the fixture aperture and replace pieces on a component by component basis, should that become necessary throughout the life of the installation. Okay, next question. Does the DMX controller for color changing also provide dimming? So that is a good question that we actually received on a webinar before. So the initial launch of the Empower DMX does not have a separate dimming function. What it has is pre-programmed scenes. So you can set a scene. If you've got an RGBW fixture, you can have scene 2 be basically white illumination at 50%. So you can have dynamic dimming levels based on the scenes you select. But if you're looking at scene 1, which is green light for whatever reason, there is not in the initial launch a separate mechanism to dim that green to 50%. That being said, it's something that we are working on, and we have some fully functional prototypes that do allow you to dim independently the scenes that you select. So that is a technology we have. You won't see it yet on the spec sheet, but if you have the need, please consult us at Curlin, because we're getting very close to being able to add that as an option to the Empower DMX because of some feedback that we've gotten from the field. Next question is, thank you. So thank you for saying thank you. And can we get the slides to share with our group? The answer there is yes. We will be sending the slides out in an email recap that will go to everyone, those who attended and those who may have missed it. So you should see that within the next handful of days in your email. And the next question is, the maintenance levels on the cut sheets are nice. Do the cut sheets also indicate what spare and replacement parts are available for each fixture? Right now, the answer, I wish it were yes, but right now the answer is no. We don't list out exactly what spare and replacement parts are available. But other than time, there's nothing stopping us from doing that. And I could see it being very helpful. We do frequently get orders with a bunch of spare parts, and we do that on a job by job basis, where they say, hey, if I want 3 extra lenses and a couple extra drivers, quote out the part numbers. And so we do that pretty regularly. But we could save some time if we did exactly that. So that's a great idea. I've written it down. I haven't actually written it down, but I'm going to write it down as soon as I end this call, because I think it would be awesome to add right in that maintenance section. And as I said, for hundreds of years, or for not hundreds, for over 100 years, Curlin's been focused on building long-standing and easily maintainable fixtures. And we really want to put that on our literature and documentation, because it's so important to us. We probably talk about it less than we ought to. We talk about it a lot when we're designing fixtures, but we don't talk about it as much when we're putting literature together and promoting fixtures. So we want to make sure that we do that and give it its due. So that would be a great addition as well. Would be adding the parts that are available to each fixture. All right. I think that's it. Thank you all for staying an extra 14 minutes. It's probably going to be 15 by the time I'm done talking here. But one thing I did want to show, I don't have the file up anymore. I did want to show how the mini cabinet installs. But essentially, you can surface mount that on any surface, whether it's a joist up in the ceiling or a wall in a maintenance closet. And if you're using a grid ceiling, which most of these behavioral spaces either use like a modified behavioral grid rather than a standard T-grid, but if you're using the mini cabinets in a standard T-grid setting, here, let me go back a few slides. These slots, these notches are intended to mount very easily into a standard T-grid. So great for use really across a number of settings in healthcare, but you can also surface mount them through these holes in the back and the holes in the ears. to wherever is going to be the most convenient surface to place those fixtures. So with that, I will say thank you. And again, feel free to remind your colleagues or friends about the 3:30 session. We'll see everybody there as well. And thanks so much for sticking around late. And have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Take care.